Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Mosaic podcast, where we invite people from all walks of life to share their stories, and where we invite you, the listener, to be like a fly on the wall. And hopefully, what you'll see is the people that we talk to are not at all what you would think they would be from the first impression. We want to give you an experience you've never had before. And I'm your host, Daniel Levin. And today, I'm fortunate enough to have my guest is Cory MacKinnon. And Cory MacKinnon has started a revolution of sorts and a movement that is called Thought Soldiers. And let me just read to you what that spiritual revolution is in his words. This spiritual revolution we embark on is to become soldiers of our own thoughts and energies. Remove the war mindset and insert the strength and training that a soldier endures. And you will understand this concept. It's time for us to take our power back and to recreate our own destiny. By stepping into this power and fine-tuning our mastery, this game can no longer keep down the soldiers of thoughts. Cory, it's with a big, fat, open heart that I invite you to join us today, and welcome to the Mosaic podcast, and thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate you inviting me on to be able to have a little discussion. And I love your work, and I love everything that you're putting out into this world right now. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Ditto, 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 and mirror right back to you. So
sweet.
This is what I love. I love when we met sort of serendipitously at a conference, and I had, and the only seat open in the room was the one right next to you. And it was the only one that I wanted to sit in also, because I felt immediately drawn to you. And so here we are sitting and talking about it. So before we get into the work aspect of it, when you were growing up as a kid, when you were a kid, what did you dream of being?
Well, at an early age, the first thing I dreamt of was being a pilot. Being a fighter pilot, actually. I watched a lot of Top Gun, and there was just something about the idea of flight and the magic in it. But I never really knew what I just knew I wanted to do something great, something that was something that wasn't normal, something that was going to bring magic into the world, whatever that may be. And so, I had no clear idea. I did want to do acting, and I wanted to be a rock star and things like that. And those are passions that I ran with, but I never thought it'd lead me to where I'm at today. That's for sure.
Wow. And so the obvious question that follows that is, where are you at today, and what has brought you to this place? So let's talk a little bit about not right yet where you are now.
Okay.
But a little bit about the history of, here's this guy who grew up wanting to be a fighter pilot and a rock star and to change the world. Tell us about how that played out for you.
Well, it didn't play out according to plan. In school, I went through a lot of issues with teachers. I had a lot of problems with behavior because I questioned everything that was going on in school. I actually ended up following my passion with music as a kid, and ended up going on tour when I was 16 with my first band. And that was a big shock, going from, living at home with mom and dad, going to high school, and then hitting the road and joining the music scene. And unfortunately, I burnt out. I was young, I was dumb, and chemicals got in the way, and I had no control. And so that was a huge part of my story that landed me where I'm at today. And I tried to follow through with getting into, with joining the Navy and the Marine Corps, and I looked into it, but they wouldn't accept me because of some mental health diagnoses I have. So both of those dreams were put out the window very early on, but I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had to land me where I'm at today.
Wow. So I'm going to go right into it if I can. All right.
Go there, brother.
Because I know a little bit about your history, and in all transparency, we tried to do this podcast yesterday. And due to some technical difficulties, what I thought was recording was not recording. And so we had a conversation, some of which revolved around some unfortunate, maybe fortunate in terms of the total reality of where you are. But somewhere in our conversation yesterday, we talked about the fact that you ended up on the street.
Yes. Yes.
And you go, here's the reason why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking because it's very rare for the world to be able to meet somebody who is articulate and is good and is right here in front of them without a threat in front of them, that has been in some of the situations you've been in. And I want to try and get to the place where people can see how this can happen to anybody, and that what someone appears to be in any one moment of their time is never what they are once you get a chance to hear their story. So I don't really want to talk about it from a place of, oh, poor him. I want to talk about it from a place of, wow, here's a person that I have the potential to see one way, but now I see them totally different.
Exactly.
So can you tell us a little, because in my book, The Mosaic, that's what happens. He meets all these characters and he immediately sees them and perceives them to be somebody. But when he listens to their story, they become somebody totally different. And I think we've all had that experience. So what I want to do is get to the story a little bit of who you were perceived to be.
Sure, definitely. So basically, to kind of quickly summarize what led up to me landing on the streets was, as I mentioned, with schools, and I was getting bullied a lot, having a lot of conflict with teachers. I got into drug use at a very early age. I found that every time that I was trying to be authentic Cory in whatever form, it wasn't accepted, or there was some sort of backlash. And so I learned this escapism from running from the truth of who I am, which led into, impulsive behavior and drug use. And so I started using it at an early age and battled my entire life up until I was about 18. I started to get clean. And it wasn't until 2011 I finally got clean off of heroin. In 2000.
Hold it. Pause.
Yeah. Yes.
So we're talking about, like, this isn't just marijuana use or
No.
some pills. We're talking about hardcore drugs. We're talking about heroin.
Yes.
Is that the extent of where it went, heroin, or did it go even?
No, it started with opiates. So it started with codeine pills. It was called Firanol with codeine was the medication. Also, I was in and out of psychiatrists my entire life. So I was always prescribed medications, heavy medications such as benzodiazepines, different barbiturates, and different sedatives in order to try to keep me calm or under control, whatever was going on at that point in time. But for me, it was always opiates and cocaine, using intravenously. And then I started using crystal meth back in 2016 is when I got introduced to crystal meth.
Wow. And so either you have come night and day from where you were to where you are, but the person that I sat next to and the person that I've had a few conversations with, I would be hard pressed to say there are psychological stuff that's going on that would need that heavy a dose of drugs. What happened? What was going on at that period of time for you?
Well, at the time, I always had a very strong intuition and was always hearing things, seeing things, was also picking up on other people's energies. Being a born very highly sensitive and an empath, I was taking on other people's stuff. And so I would constantly be shifting and changing, and I really didn't know what was going on. Wow. And the doctors didn't really know either. And so, with me being, because, I did suffer from suicidal ideation and suicide attempts at a young age. My first suicide attempt was at 15 years old.
Whoa.
And that's when, it got to a point where they didn't know what was going on. And so we were just trying to figure out, this whole journey for me has been just trying to figure out what's going on with Cory. And not until about a year ago did I really figure out what's really going on, and now trying to fight the stigma that I've had attached to me for my entire life of what we thought was going on. And now I've luckily found a clinical team that sees that it's not just a diagnosis, that I'm just an individual. I'm an artist, I'm highly sensitive, and I'm learning to hone in on those skills and learning to slowly get off the medications and to look at everything that's going on with me in a new light. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations for sort of walking your way through a path that virtually, I can't imagine anyone wanting to walk through, but
No.
walking through it and coming to the other side. And so what allowed you to connect, to like disconnect from that
Mhm.
reality that you were living and to connect? Like my whole thing is we're like a mosaic, you know, and all the pieces around us create and form the reality we live in. But the beautiful thing about a mosaic is if at any point in time, if your piece doesn't no longer fits into those pieces around it, you can literally pick it up and move it anywhere on the block, as opposed to a jigsaw puzzle
Mhm.
where every piece goes exactly where it is, and the puzzle can't work. What allowed you the
Yeah.
courage, the strength? What happened for you that allowed you to take your piece out of the reality you were in and place it in another reality?
Well, so the universe had just adjusted everything accordingly for me to lose everything.
Yeah.
It just somehow mysteriously, in the beauty of the orchestration of how things work, in divine timing and divine orchestration, I lost everything. And a lot of it wasn't like, you know, there was a lot of my part that was that, and things that I did in order to lose everything. It's not like it was just stripped away from me, but it was because there was a bigger plan. I realized there was something more I had to go through in order to learn and to grow. And so for me, what happened was my family, my only place of my only place to be able to seek any sort of comfort or refuge was at my family's house for a very long time. And it got to a point where they could no longer afford the home. My dad was working, 40 to 60-hour weeks up until about 70 years old.
Wow.
Um, Trying to just barely make by with what he had with the house. And my destructive behavior was definitely bringing about a level of stress and a level of backlash from neighbors and from institutions and things like that. That was carrying heavy on the weight of my family. And so my family chose to sell the house and move back in 2017. Was it? No, it was 2018. They decided to move. And at that point in time, so about 2017 is when I started to hit the streets and started to cycle through the homelessness of going in and out of crisis homes, in and out of rehabs, homeless shelters, on the streets, in my car, couch surfing, things like that. And what happened was when I came into the street level, I started to recognize that there was something there, that some of the greatest life lessons, the most beautiful people, the most intelligent people I met was in the homeless community. And they helped me to grow and to expand my consciousness and to find God. Like I had numerous conversations at my homeless shelter where I'm sitting down with a guy who's, missing an arm, just like me, has no top teeth, recovering drug addict, veteran. And we're sitting here and we're having the most wonderful, intelligent conversations about God, about spirituality, about faith, about different parts of the world. And I got to start to live the mosaic, sort of. I got to hear different people's stories. And I recognized that every person was getting me closer and closer to that spirit that I've been looking for, that power greater than myself that was going to help restore me to this new place and this newfound belief that I'm in today. And that's why when I met you and I heard about your story, I was like, what? It struck me, because that's what happened to me. And every day now there's a little miracle of I get to learn a little bit of God from another individual. And it's usually a person that's not dressed up as a priest, or, I
Right.
didn't go to a church to find them. It's just your normal plain Jane on the street. It's awesome.
So one of the things I want to just highlight is the funny thing is that when I met you, I felt the same way. I
Mm-hmm.
felt here's a guy who is not at all what the world would paint him out to be. And if you could share with somebody who, um, I guess the best way to say it is, we can't judge a book by its cover, right? We hear that over and over again, and we say that what people appear to be is only what they appear to be. And one of the big things of the mosaic is, if you could see what you don't see, what would you see? But if you could talk to them from the perspective of being in that situation, first of all, how did people view you? Because there's a guy that says something that really interests me. He said, who we are is not who we think we are or who you
Mm-hmm.
think we are. Who we are
Mm-hmm.
is who I think you think I am. And
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting. So from the perspective of a homeless guy,
Mhm.
who do you believe people thought you were to be?
You know, I don't know. A lot of people thought I was strange. You know, a lot of people were a little bit like, what's up with this kid? And it was something I dealt with a lot at, when I lived at 13th and Newton. There was a temporary homeless shelter ran by Alpha Project here in San Diego. And when I was living there, a lot of people were like, what's up with this kid? Is he a cop? Like, he's intelligent. And I still had clean clothes. Like, I had okay clothes. I still had family that talked to me. I was very quiet. I kept to myself. I played guitar, things, and they were just like, a lot of people couldn't quite grasp what was going on with me. And then I let people in, and I started to talk about things like spirituality, and started to show the level. I started to show my heart to the world, and then people started to see, like, oh, there's something more to him than what meets the eye. And this is something that I saw with a lot of people I ran into on the streets, is that there's a lot more. If you choose to just consciously crack that shell a little bit and open it up, you'll see a world of beautiful mysteries within every individual, and a beautiful story that really helps to understand how they ended up in their position that they're in. And it definitely warmed up my heart to a new level of compassion and a new level of empathy.
Did somebody do that for you, or did that just evolve out of who you were?
A few people did that for me. I think it was just more the collective experiences slowly opening up more. And there was one lady in particular that I remember. I'll always remember this night. I was sitting outside of the homeless shelter, and I don't remember her name, and I'm so sad I don't remember her name, but she had a cane, and she was she had this very rough kind of personality to her, rough energy, she had a shield up, a protection. And she started talking about how all of her situations of where she was beaten, she was raped, where men were taking advantage of her, and she was in so much pain, and she had a cane, and she had she refused to take pain medications because she saw what it did to people. And this woman just kept saying, I'm just going to continue to fight. God's got my back. No matter what happened, no man can remove my soul from me. And it just totally blew my mind to start hearing these stories of people that have walked through very, very dark and times that a lot of people wouldn't normally make it out of, and they still have their head held high, and they still have faith that something's going to work out one day for them, and they just keep moving forward. And that's what helped to give me that strength and that ability to become a more resilient individual too.
So here's what I want to try and do, because now you have such beautiful insight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to allow you the space now to, if you could, whether this is through Thought Soldier philosophy or through just what you've grown to do.
Mm-hmm.
If there was one thing you could say to people right now that would help them to no longer just see the shell, but crack the shell to get through, because it's not only first doing it with a homeless person, it's doing it with everybody in the world. We all have pain, like that woman with the cane.
Yeah.
We all have pain, and we protect ourselves from having more pain in whatever way we do. How would you suggest, from the place that you've been in, where you've seen so much of this pain, and where you were able to do that for yourself, would you suggest that people get to the place where they can crack that pain or open up somebody? What is the key to doing that you see that would help people see the person for who they are?
Simply sit down and ask that person how that day's going. You know, like, a lot of people just want to be heard, and we've had this discussion before. A lot of people just want to know that there's someone listening. And so as simple as just sitting down and saying, hey, how's your day going? And then actively engaging with them, and trying to find some piece to relate. So for me, what I always do is when I'm actively listening in a conversation, I try to see where I can bridge that compassion gap or that empathy gap. And then what if I hear something in their tale? So for instance, this woman's talking about her hardship. I will share about my hardship give her a little glimpse of it, to let her know, you're human, I'm human, we both have pain, let's connect right there. And then right there, as soon as you make that heartfelt connection, and it's from a spot of, it's being genuine, it's got to be an authentic connection. Because a lot of us, every human on the face of this earth, we can sense energy, we can sense when someone's not being authentic. But if you are coming from a loving spot and you really are coming from a spot of compassion, you can make that connection. You now open up the door of possibility to be able to really learn about another individual if you want to. The other thing too is those of us that are in the healing role or naturally attract these people, it's very easy to sit down and to get a conversation going and to really get someone to open up. But if someone really wants to do this, I ask that they find the one person they would not normally approach and sit down and give them 10 minutes of your time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. 10 minutes in a day is nothing. It's a very small amount of time, but you never know when that 10 minutes of actively listening to another individual can help change their day. Because there are days where I was completely down and out on the streets. I was in a psychosis. I thought I was going to lose it. Someone came up and said, "How are you doing?" And little did they know that just before then I was thinking about killing myself. And because that person showed that they had heart and that they were actively listening to me, I consciously chose to continue my day out, not having to live that way, not having to live in that darkness. And it pulled me out. And so there's such these little acts of kindness that can really shift one person's reality completely 180 degrees and move them in a completely another direction in their life. And it also helps to break stigma too, because once I started to really sit down and have genuine intellectual conversations with these people, I recognize that if you sat us down with some elites and had a conversation, it would be a very interesting, beautiful conversation. And that's where I really started to want to see these kind of thought tables or these thought tanks where we could get people from all different social classes and put them in one bubble and see what we could learn from one
another. What you're mentioning right now is the dream that I have. I'm calling it the $1 a month club. And the $1 a month club is the membership that you have to pay to be a part of this group. And the beauty of this group is that initially the beauty of it is that we bring people of unlike minds together. We bring the smartest people in the world and the simplest people in the world. We bring the homeless together with the CEOs, and we sit together and have conversation of unlike mind, where we take a look at some of the problems that exist in the world that should never exist anymore. There should never be anybody that's homeless. There should never be anybody without food. There should never be anybody that doesn't have medical treatment. There should never be anybody that goes uneducated. And what I want to do is get people of all minds to come together and start to think about that and start to talk about that. And then use swarm intelligence, which is something people can find out more by contacting me. I don't want to take all of our time talking about that, but to use swarm intelligence to actually come up with possible viable solutions. And the goal of the $1 a month club is to reach 1 billion members. And that would mean that we would have $1 billion a month to put towards financing the solutions we come up with together. And so I would love you to be involved in that, because you just mentioned what my dream is, and it's your dream too. And I would like to, on separate cover, talk to you about it more, because let's get back.
Okay.
What's one connection that you think happened in your life that completely changed your world?
That completely changed my world. For the better or for the worse?
Either you could do both, but either way, which one comes to surface first?
So the biggest connection that really brought about the change in my world when I look at this radical transformation that happened from the old Cory to the new Cory was I was given what's called a peer support specialist, which is someone who has lived experience, which essentially has suffered from behavioral health issues, mental health challenges, and comes in and kind of is a case manager. And he came in and I started to tell him my story. And for once, someone didn't say you were crazy. Someone said, you're an X-Men. Like, you've got superpowers is what you've got. We need to hone in on those superpowers. And for once in my life, I didn't have this label that is thick and heavy, with the addict, schizophrenic, crazy, out of his mind, grandiose, whatever. For once, someone said, no, you're strong. And to have someone that believed in me like that was beautiful. And also too, when I told him, I want to get clean, I want to get treatment, things like that, instead of saying, oh, we're going to take you to the doctor, he said, what do you want to do for your treatment? What would you like? And for once, I got to actively choose and actively participate in my treatment, because for so long it was go here, sit down, do this, X, Y, Z, move on. And what happened was it didn't really work for me. And so that one connection really helped to expand my consciousness too, because for once he was like, no, something is going on with you, something more than what meets the eye. And for once I finally started to recognize that I wasn't just insane. I wasn't just a product of all these things. There was something special about me. And so now I'm getting closer and closer to figuring out what is the magic of Cory that creates Cory. And for me, it's my heart. And so now I actively pursue, chasing my heart chakra. I've got a little heart chakra card right here in front of me. And opening that up and letting people feel that, because that's where my creation exists. And so he helped me to find that. And there's been so many beautiful connections along the journey that have really opened me and expanded me into where I'm at today. Every healer I've met, every person on the street. But the biggest one that really shaped me was having this peer support specialist that worked with me. And he was actually the one that walked me into the homeless shelter. And that was beautiful too, because I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no idea what was in store for me. And he walked in there with me, made sure I got my bag settled. And he said, if you need anything, I'm here. And he actively stayed a part of my recovery during that whole process. And it was nice having someone walk alongside me and empower me through that. So
I love that, because, so often we feel like we're alone and we're doing this on our own. And it really just takes one person to sit with us and believe in us. And I'm going to show you something that I realized while I was waiting for you to come in the room. Watch this and see if it comes across.
Yes.
Can you see what's behind me? No, it didn't come across. I did it before. There's this big Buddha. When I did it before, I saw this big, like right in front of, behind my head is this big Buddha head. That was disappear. It would be there. So what I was trying to show is that behind us is something greater than we could ever imagine.
Yes.
And one of the beautiful things is, you said it so beautifully. If we would just take 10 minutes of our day, and 10 minutes in the course of a lifetime is nothing. To just give of ourselves to another human being and just listen to them. I love how you said it, just in listening. So what's the biggest surprise you found when you took time to listen to another human being?
I learned something about myself, because, when I started to really step into my level of spirituality and stuff and realize that everyone's a reflection, things like that. The biggest thing was when I was, and there's a difference between just listening and actively listening. Actively listening, you're engaged and you're not waiting for that pause to break in and to interject. You're sitting back and you're soaking in everything that's going on. And it actually, the biggest thing that happened recently that touches on this was our marketing meeting. When we were at that conference, I was sitting down, and when I listened to everybody at that conference, everyone was a perfect mini reflection of these archetypes that live within me as of recently. And I started to get answers to my own questions in these other individuals' stories. Wow. And I was like, I walked away just like, kind of like, this is and that's what will happen is not only you're learning about another individual, but you might learn about yourself, because you might learn about something that happened within you and why you did something. The universe is always willing to unveil its secrets. And the one thing I found out was that I found my strength and my resilience in other people, because I saw these people that had walked through situations that were a lot worse off in my eyes, in my perspective, than mine. And they were still walking, and they were still smiling, and they were still trying. And that gave me hope. But not only did it give me hope, but it also made me realize that there is an untapped market of potential that could change this world. And they've been cast out and deemed out by society and treated as animals, treated as this kind of bottom of the earth stuff. But if you really go in and listen to their hearts and listen to their stories and what they have to provide, and some of them even have these genius business ideas that could create abundance for other homeless individuals. Like, I feel like there's so much magic in there if we were to just sit down and to listen.
So is your work to work with homeless people, or is your work to work with everybody?
It's evolving. My work is to work with everybody. I don't want to discriminate. I love to work with mainly people that have been outcasted by society, the kind of the Sandlot bunch, the ones that are just that aren't that don't fit into the mold. I also really like working with people that are recovering drug addicts and recovering alcoholics or have behavioral health issues of any sort. But as I'm evolving and growing, I'm making sure that the market I hit evolves too, or the people that I want to work with. I'd love to work more one-on-one with homeless people, but also too, it's very hard to get in with some of these individuals that have been through a lot of really rough, nasty things. It's hard to break that shell and to get in to help them to feel comfortable. So if there is a way to be able to get them into a neutral space, or also being able to get up and to be able to share my word with them more one-on-one would be beautiful, because a lot of them don't have access to technology. They're not going on YouTube and watching spirituality videos, and they're not listening to podcasts or surfing the web unless it's at the library. A lot of them are out there on the streets, and so that's where I would have to really dive in and pay more attention at ground level and do some grassroots one-on-one building relationships.
And so what I hear is a little bit of a dichotomy, and I want to ask you maybe a little bit of where this goes, okay?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I hear changed you, from what I hear, and tell me if I've got it wrong,
mm-hmm.
One of the things that I hear opened you up and changed you the most and opened up your shell was when
mm-hmm.
someone just took the time to listen to you and believe in you and tell you they believed in you and hold the space for you to be who you are.
Yes.
And then another side, as you go into helping people, is how do I share with them who I am in this message that they can't get on YouTube?
mm-hmm.
Do you think there's room in the world that you've come from for people to just sit with people and listen to them and try and give them? There's a Vietnamese monk by the name of Thich Nhat Hanh, and he has,
yes.
You know Thich Nhat Hanh?
Yes, of course I do.
And he has this beautiful practice called compassionate listening. And what he says is, I just want to create the space for you, brother, to pour all of your suffering and all of your pain into this space. Mm-hmm. And I want to just ask you to believe in me and trust me that I will never use anything you say against you. And you might even say to me, Danny, you're the reason why I feel this. And you might attack me and come at me. But I'm not going to question you. I'm not going to rationalize. I'm not going to defend myself. I'm just going to say, please tell me more, because I want you to pour everything you are, all your suffering, into the space, because as long as it's inside you, it'll only bring you pain. And the compassionate part of my listening is that I'm listening and I allow you to pour all of it into this space, which is neutral. It'll always be here for you if you want to take it back, because it's just a space that's held for you. But you no longer need to walk with it inside you. Do you believe there's space within the community of the homeless? And you can't rationalize or generalize that space, because probably for some yes, probably for some no. Yeah. But how do you see that happening for you?
It's really hard, because humans are very pattern-like in our behavior and the way we understand the world. Our beliefs come from the patterns and the realities we've faced. And a lot of these people haven't come from spots of warmth and compassion and love. Like for me, I came from a home of a lot of warmth, compassion, and love, and was brought into that arena. There's a lot of people that were born into that arena, and all they know is that survival mentality their entire life. And so to break that shell, because I was sitting here thinking, what would it be like to go up and to approach an individual and be like, brother, I love you unconditionally, and let them open up. I could see some people opening up and letting that out. And I could see some people saying, and start throwing up middle fingers and cussing you out and start trying to fight you. It's very hard to hold that space, especially when you're on the street and you're in survival mode, it's fight or flight. Wow. Fight, flight, or freeze. And when you're in that survival mode, a majority of them are choosing to fight. And so how can we put someone into a space of safety as well in order to let them bring that up? Because also, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. we need that safety. We need that firm bedrock in order to bring them up to that level of being able to open up. And so if we're meeting them in a spot of, that is dangerous or it's unsafe, and we're trying to open them up there, I don't think that would be the most therapeutic spot. If we could get them to a neutral zone where they feel safe and they feel comforted, and then being able to do that, yes, I can see that working. But at a street level, I haven't personally tried. The times that I've been able to open up with someone, we were at things like a homeless shelter, which is a very safe place to be.
Gotcha.
And so I feel like that's going to be the best place to be able to open them up to that level of letting that in.
So maybe what you're saying seems like maybe the place to start is a place that is already helping them and supporting them and giving them some of the things that they need in order to survive. And then from that place, inviting them to share more and survive even fuller. But it's so interesting because as you speak, I understand that's an exaggerated example of everybody else in the world, but it's just like everybody else in the world. We're all in fight and flight, right? We're all in fight, flight, or freeze, or whatever you want to call it. And all of us need that safe space. And so as much as I could see where your work, let's talk about your work a little bit. Tell me more about Thought Soldiers, because I think Thought Soldiers is such a brilliant brand and such a brilliant idea, but I'd like you to talk to me about it, and to the extent that you can, flush it out for how you see it affecting people and bringing people into the movement.
Sure. So Thought Soldiers just started, actually. Back in December, it started with just wanting to talk about spirituality on YouTube. So I really started to learn a lot about things like indigo children and, the whole light worker community, which I really resonate with. And so I started to put out videos about spirituality because I was filled with all these ideas. What came about, though, was the name Thought Soldiers. And, I've kind of been back and forth on the name because it's still the war mentality and things like that. But the business is currently, or what I do as the mission of Thought Soldiers is still evolving, and I'm still trying to hone in on exactly what it is. But the idea of it is to become masters of our own mind and our own conscious and subconscious, and being able to bridge the gap between the head space and the heart space, and being able to integrate those two and get them to talk in perfect harmony with one another. Because I feel like a lot of it is like the balance of the masculine and the feminine within the subconscious or the conscious and subconscious, heart and mind. It's just getting a nice, even communication between the two so we can better understand what's going on with our reality. So for me, I started to just coach people for free, friends that were feeling very alone, very isolated, very hermited on their awakening journey. I chose to sit there and to hold space energetically while they dove into a lot of like their shadow work, which is what helped me, which is diving into the darkness within us, the things we don't like, our fears, our pain, our traumas. I energetically held space for them while they decided to meet these things, whether it was in meditation or just through talking, and let these things come to the surface and get purged. Yeah.
I'm timing out because for people who might be listening that are not a part of the New Age community,
yes,
tell me what that means to energetically hold space for people, because I can understand some people might be just looking and saying, what the hell's going on here? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Here's this homeless guy who came in. Now he's energetically holding space. What the hell does that mean?
I apologize.
No, don't apologize. I just I want to create the space for people to know that there aren't terms that we're using that they don't understand. So when I catch one, I'm going to ask you to, how does that happen? What does it mean to energetically hold space for someone?
So basically, we all vibrate at a certain frequency. When it comes down to when it comes to spiritual awakening and ascension, ascending into higher dimensions of existence. If we're going to start going down there.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Hold on.
I knew it. Open that door.
Okay, I want to open the door, but I want to open it gently.
Okay.
Because I get it. I'm with you, but there's some people that won't.
Yes.
I can hear some people now saying, "What do you mean we all vibrate? Like what does that mean?"
Yeah.
And I just want to sort of make it very attainable for people. Because when you talk about a thought soldier, that's something I get immediately. That's like mastering your mind. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about the war mentality of ending the violent mentality or the hatred mentality I understand that also.
Mm.
When we talk about existing, like if we understand that we're all energy, then we can understand that energy vibrates at a different level. But there's some people that are going to be here and say, hold it, this feels pretty solid. I don't feel like I'm vibrating anywhere.
Mm.
What, go way back now and start the conversation with me as if I
Okay.
knew nothing about the New Age world.
Okay. So, first off, we're all made up of mainly energy. So if we go into quantum physics, it actually talks about the space between, the proton and the electron, and all of that is just, we're mainly energy. I don't know all the details of quantum physics because I don't study it.
Okay, but if you,
So I'm not gonna go
to
there.
just
But
clarify here,
yes.
if we were to look at what appears to be solid, which is our body,
Mm-hmm.
under a powerful microscope,
Mm-hmm.
we would not see anything solid. We would see atoms and neurons and whatever those words are
Mm-hmm.
moving around at different speeds.
Exactly.
And so in what appears to be solid, there is nothing solid that makes up what appears to be solid.
Yes.
So that's the quantum physics of the fact that when metaphysics has talked to us about energy, they've been talking for a long time. Quantum physics is now proving to us scientifically that our body is made up of energy moving at different speeds. That was Einstein's
Yes.
theory of relativity. Okay, so go now. Assuming we assume and we have buy-in on the fact that we're energy.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's keep going.
Okay, so with holding space, then, to put this into layman's terms, is I can help to bring these things to the surface. So how or why it happens, I do not know. It is a gift that I have where I can sit there and I can help to kind of set up little trigger points to go into what's going on with you and let that come to the surface. So to put that in very, very, very basic terms. And holding space is basically the same like what you're doing for me. You're holding a compassionate zone for me to be able to open up and to be able to share my message. This platform is holding space.
Great.
So essentially it's giving someone the opportunity, a safe opportunity to let that come to the surface, whatever it may be, in a spot where they're going to be judged. They're not going to be judged. It's going to be judgment free. There's going to be someone that's understanding and that's actively listening and also cares enough to want to hold that space for that individual as well.
So let me sidestep it a little bit for a minute without sidestepping it.
Mm-hmm.
And just say to people who are listening that are somewhat confused at this point, imagine sitting with someone who you could tell them anything that you ever dreamed of telling them, where you could empty yourself of everything that troubles you and everything that brings you joy, and that person would just receive that. And now imagine that possibility that somebody might be able to find places where energy is blocked within you and might be able to touch certain places that would release some of those blocks. I know my wife Anna does energy alignments, so that's a lot of what she does. Are you saying now that you also have the ability to, in holding the space for people, allow them to open up to you and find spaces where they might feel some resistance, and you're able to, through whatever work that you do, through the work of Thought Soldiers or the work of Reiki or whatever it is you do,
Just whatever I do,
you're able to free that space up for them to be able to experience that more abundantly, who they are?
Yes, definitely. And it's a gift that I learned through my teachings with Reiki, which is a form of energy healing as well. But it's something that I've always naturally had. And a lot of us that were born natural healers have, where we have that ability to be able to hold space, hold space for another individual to let those things come to the surface, because it just comes to us. I don't know how else to explain it.
And so can you, for people who are unsure,
Mm-hmm.
do you have, without revealing names or anything personal to people that they've trusted you to keep,
Mm-hmm.
can you explain, or can you give a case point of
Mm-hmm.
someone who has come to you where that work has been done and what they've experienced and what's changed within them?
Yeah. So I have one person in particular who's in another country, And him and I worked together for a month and a half every week. We talked for about 3 or 4 hours a week, just going through, and a lot of it was just relating and just sharing stories about one another. But there was one moment in particular I'm very happy to have worked through with him, where he was going through a dark time where he had ran into a scenario where he thought that, because my focus is very spiritual in nature. Warning, it may get a little woo-woo here, may get a little strange. But he thought that he was getting either a psychological attack or there was some entity, some demonic entity that attached onto him. And I apologize for, well, no, I don't apologize for going down on this. This is my work and this is what I love to do.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let's dive into this. Let's figure out what this is. And so I guided him into a meditation to meet this thing that attached onto him. And when he met it into meditation, I guided him through, had him do some deep breathing, and I applied some Reiki while he did this. We let this thing come into his mind in meditation, and he recognized that it wasn't anything dark. It was an unhealed aspect of him at a certain age where he was cheated on. And he cheated on someone. And it was, so what ended up starting out as this very kind of like mystical, very almost something you would run to a priest or an exorcist with, ended up turning into just something that was living within, that was unresolved and was unhealed. And we got to bring that to the surface. He got to meet it, and he got to love it. He got to bring it in and give it a hug in meditation, and got to release that part of him. And now he's in a very beautiful relationship, which I love to see flourish. Him and I don't really talk as much anymore because he's so preoccupied with his relationship. He's now taken his power back. He's got a mission. He's no longer enslaved by the 9 to 5. He's now got a new direction in life. And that's what's beautiful too, is a lot of the people that I run into on this path are lost, and they are aware that something more is going on within them, that they want to be able to figure out what's going on, and just being able to say, I understand, and this is my story, and this is what I did to get out of it, and help to show them what I did, really is helped to. I've had 2 people in particular I've been able to really help with that, and it's brought a lot of joy into my life, and that's why I continue doing the work that I do.
Fabulous. And so, if I were wanting to normalize that conversation a little bit, which doesn't really need to be normalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I wanted to normalize it,
yeah,
one of the ways that I think people can easily relate is we all come across situations that we're scared about. Yeah. And in my book, The Mosaic, I call it the beast. It's that beast in us that does things that we're scared of, and we try and lock the beast up in a room. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to deal with the beast, and we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to ever deal with it. And by locking the beast up, it just gets more enraged and more powerful and more, and eventually the beast will break down the door. Mm-hmm. and will cause havoc in our lives, and will cause us to do whatever it causes us to do. And so when we can meet the beast, unlock that door and meet the beast, which is what you did, and sort of hold him and love him and understand what he's trying to say, different change happens. I have a developmentally delayed daughter, and when she speaks, people don't understand her. So sometimes with me, she'll speak and I don't get it. And so she'll raise her voice, thinking that if she speaks louder, I might understand it. But it wasn't the loudness, it's the quality of what she's saying that I don't get. And when I don't get it when she screams, then she creates a scene. She throws a tantrum. And when she throws a tantrum and I don't get it, she tries to destroy something. She comes running at me to bite me or rip something because she's so frustrated I don't understand it. Well, everybody in the world operates in the same way. They try and communicate something. When they don't communicate, they yell. When they yell, and they create a scene. And when they create a scene, it doesn't work. They destroy something. So when you can meet that person and hear them and give them the chance to speak in whatever way they can, and try and sit with them and understand them, then what happens is we dissipate all of that, the future things. And really, that's what you did with your friend, it seems like, right?
Yeah, being able to dissipate it, and being able to take the power out of it, and realize that these things sometimes that seem so, because we don't know how to put a definition on some of these feelings sometimes.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to wrap our brain, and so we can only draw to our logical conclusion. And this thing that seemed like some external big scary thing, it just ended up being something within him that just was unhealed and was calling out for attention and just wanted some love. And when he got to meet that space and he got to love it unconditionally, it disappeared, and
Yeah.
his life got better. And that's what felt nice, being able to witness and to realize that it's like, it's like the hero's journey, or the hero of a thousand faces by Joseph Campbell. It's, you're on your path, and at the very end you got to meet the monster, and the monster is usually just something within us, but once you defeat it, there's some gold at the end, there's some treasure, there's
Yeah.
love, there's money, there's some sort of wisdom or knowledge attained from it, a natural archetype that lives within a lot of the stories in society nowadays in movies. And that's what this is it's just the idea of Thought Soldiers is to help you go within and to face those things that are within, however you want to look at them as, and however you want to describe them, because this is a non-discriminatory zone. If you want to call it attachments, if you want to call it the boogeyman, if you want to call it Santa Claus, it doesn't matter. But it's being able to go within and look at it, and being able to let you dive into that, but not alone. So we can pull you out of it if it gets too deep and too dark.
So if we would really personalize this now, with your permission.
Yeah.
Taking the work that you've done with that other person and taking this philosophy now, when you go back into the life that you led, which was bullied and drugs and homeless and all of that stuff, what is the one thing that you now see that you didn't see before? And what is that thing that you love about that has allowed that to heal?
That everyone's got skeletons in their closet.
Wow.
Everyone's got, and I got to let those skeletons out, and I got to recognize that those skeletons are beautiful aspects that make up this whole being that is this loving, caring, compassionate individual that's here today. And so I choose to share those things because when I know I have a magic magnifying mind, and when my mind is zoomed in on all those things I don't like about myself, that's what comes to the surface, and that's energetically what I'm putting out into the universe. And so when I bring that in, and I let that become a whole of who I am, and recognize that that little aspect is what makes up this entire person, it's one piece of the mosaic. Is that, to me, was the gold, is that we all have that within, but as soon as you realize you're not the only one with it, we're all just trying to figure this out, whatever's going on in here and out there. I recognize that I have a lot of untapped power and potential and strength that lies within me, just as every individual I ran into on this journey, that I continue to run into, because we've all got our strengths. And the thing for me, the magic is no longer looking at our weaknesses, but what are your strengths and what can we do to capitalize on those strengths, and to let those, because for me, when someone pointed out a few of my strengths, I started to expand on that, and that's when I started to step into my purpose and started to find value within myself. And that's where I found success, that internal success of loving who I am unconditionally.
I love it. So I think we're sort of getting there, but in wrapping up, I always ask two questions.
Yes.
And the first one is, if there was one thing that you wanted to say to the world without anger, that to be heard by a world without judgment, what is the one thing that you would say from the experiences that you've had in your life, from the person that you are? What's the one thing your voice, you would want to say with a voice that's heard by millions? What would that be?
That's tough. You asked me the same question yesterday, and I had a tough time coming up with it. But the one thing is to not judge, because everyone's got their differences. And for me, I'm all about unification and bringing people together. And in a world that is creating divides and creating borders, I'd love to see us recognize each other for our differences and be able to love each other unconditionally because of our differences, and recognize that it is just one piece of the beautiful fractal that makes up humanity. And we're all different shades, different colors. And when we zoom out and look at the big picture, every person's role serves a vital, huge aspect in the entirety of the beautiful orchestration of this world. And so being able to recognize those differences and love them unconditionally will help people to shine those colors brighter. And then I feel like our world will be painted a much more vibrant, more brighter world. You know, it's like we will dim ourselves because of judgments of others and because we make comparisons, but learning to love unconditionally the differences of everybody in society and to let those colors shine brighter is what is going to make a more vibrant world to live in.
Beautiful. You couldn't be a better Mosaic spokesperson if you asked for it, because each one of those pieces is a beautiful piece of the mosaic, and on their own they may be beautiful or ugly, but together they make up something that is exquisite. So the final question I want to ask is, when you look at the world that we live in today, is this the world that you always dreamed of handing over to your children or your children's children? And you may not have children right now, but you know the idea of, is this the world that you always dreamed we would give to the future generation?
No. And that's why I'm consciously choosing to create that world.
Fabulous. So the next question, follow up on that, which is, I've asked that question to hundreds of thousands and maybe even thousands of people, and I've yet to hear a yes. And so the question that I ask after that is, what is it that what's the one thing that you would go to as the first thing that you would change to try and put your energy and your resources and your ability in to make this into a world that you would want to hand over to the next generation?
Man, that's tough because there's so many factors, but being more strength-based with every individual. We with the state of lack and the state of being less than for a lot of the individuals I ran into, being able to now hone in on people's strengths and being able to see what we could use to be able to make them better individuals. And a lot of them want to help and to serve other individuals. A lot of these people that come from these broken, desolate places that get out of it, they've got a heart for it. They want to help other people. And so help build those people up into these strong, firm structures, and to help build other people up and empower everybody, and help to kind of bring the power shift back. You know, that's what I think would be the first thing I would like to see.
So I want to thank you again for being on the podcast. I want to invite people to find out more about you. And if they want to do that, how would they go about finding you? What's the best place to resource you? How can they get in touch with you?
So they can go to www.thoughtsoldiers.com, and on there are links to my YouTube page, to my Instagram, and I have blogs that I'm starting to post there. And my email is posted there as well. So just go to thoughtsoldiers.com, and that will be the reroute to any direction you guys want to follow.
Fabulous. Cory, thank you for being on. And I just want to summarize our conversation by one of the things that you said that is so absolutely exquisite to me. That if we were to see our lives as pieces of a mosaic, and to see our situations that we're in as just one small piece of the totality of the life that we actually live, what would we be able to do? And where would we be able to find new pieces? Where would we be able to find 10 minutes in the course of a lifetime to just sit with somebody and show them we care by listening to their story? So if what Cory said inspired you in any way, shape, or form, and you feel like you'd like to do some work with him, we're going to post his website and his information below when we post the podcast. I want to encourage you to just reach out to him, to keep dialogue going, to bring him into the work that you're doing, to allow him to touch you in the way he's touched me. And I really want to invite you to invite him into your life and play with him a little bit, and see what will happen when you break through some of the shell that keeps you from being yourself. Again, Cory, thank you for being on the podcast. I wish you big luck, big love, and I thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Daniel. Much love to you.
Ciao.